Starting and running a business is hard, but you don't have to do it alone. Whether you're an established business owner or thinking about starting a side hustle to earn extra income, I am here to teach you how to show up as your unfiltered self, level up your business, and thrive as a mompreneur. Let's embrace the chaos and start enjoying the journey together. I'm Amy Traw, and you're listening to the Motivated Mompreneur Podcast. Super excited today because I have my first in-studio guest while I'm recording here. This person that I am bringing on today has been monumental in getting me through the last month of my life. So without further ado, I would like to introduce my husband, Jonathan. Hey, welcome into the podcast.
Well, hello. Thank you.
Yeah, this is your first podcast, right?
Yes, first one ever. I'm really excited.
Well, that's awesome because you talked about starting your own podcast too, which I totally think you should do. So I want to talk about this last month. So I broke up with my job in healthcare. I officially told you I was going to retire. What did you think when I told you that?
Well, if we think back a couple years ago when you started your first business and, you're working 40 hours a week and you said, hey, I'm going to start this business after you were furloughed during COVID, and we talked about dropping you from, you were working 40 hours and you're going to work 32 hours. And that freaked me out. That totally freaked me out. I thought, how are we going to do this? How are we going to, pay for the things we need to pay for? How are we going to make things work? And then we took the step, and it wasn't as scary as you play out in your mind. And so it wasn't so bad. And then, fast forward a couple more years, and then you start this new venture, and then you're telling me I need to cut back even more. I want to go part-time, 20 hours a week. Oh boy. But having already taken one baby step, it was still a little scary, but it was still scary, but it wasn't as bad as it had been the first time. And then this time around, when we talked about you retiring, I thought, again, a little scary, but less scary overall. And then you just start to think about and see how things are going, and it just I felt like, take that leap, and I take the leap. We're scared, but let's just do it. Let's see what happens.
What I think is so funny is that you never told me any of this while we were going through it.
I know. It was always after the fact, but I didn't want to talk you out of something.
Sure.
I felt like, we're here to support each other, and I have faith in what I know you're capable of doing. And I just felt like, I know your listeners have heard you talk about, how it was in your previous job and how things were and how you felt you needed to make a change. And I know we had talked about that. So I felt strongly, and I felt strongly after we talked, that this was something that, you needed to do. And I feel like it's definitely, already shown that it's paying off, and, you've been able to help so many people, and it's great to see.
Yeah. So let's talk more about the whole fear aspect, because we've had some really good conversations with each other about fear and just living life in the moment. And so one of the analogies I heard someone talk about the other day was, little kids standing on a diving board. And, when you're standing at the end of a diving board for the first time and looking down at the pool, you're thinking, oh my gosh, like, am I going to be okay? Am I going to remember how to swim? What am I going to do? Like, is somebody going to come to save me if I don't, and start to drown? But you jump and you do it, and it's not so bad. And then it's kind of fun. Mm-hmm. And you just keep doing that over and over. And the scary thing isn't scary anymore. Right.
And that's kind of how I felt. That's how I felt with, again, what I was talking about when you're reducing your hours at work. The first one was, oh my gosh, there was that moment I'm standing on the diving board. We're standing on the diving board, and it's like, oh, why are we doing this? Why do, we have such a sure thing. We know we have this, but it's not necessarily making you happy. It's not necessarily where you want to be, in your life. So, you take that first step, and then you take the next step, and then you just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and soon you go from walking to running, and it's just you just don't have to worry about looking back. And it just also too, sometimes you worry about what you're leaving, but you forget what you could be gaining. And I think a lot of people, I don't necessarily think a lot of people lose sight of that, but I think a lot of people, the fear prevents them from really seeing or understanding that, I think.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I was paralyzed by fear for a long time. I think even in my first business, I think the fear of failure really held me back. And it was when I started to reach out and admit my fears and ask for help that I really feel like I started to grow a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's why it's important. That's why I appreciate our talks, because I do feel like that makes a difference. I think it makes a difference to have people in your life that you can rely on, that you can trust, that you care about, and care about you, because it's important to have honest conversations about that type of thing. And I think that we can learn a lot from each other. I think we can gain strength from one another. I think you can, build something bigger when you have a better community around you.
Sure, exactly. I mean, even if you don't have a spouse, just being able to have that inner circle of people to throw things at and ask them these questions and ask for advice and that honest input. Because I don't want somebody to sugarcoat it. I want you to tell me if I'm absolutely nuts. Just let me know. Like, tell me, because I don't know. I can't read your mind. I know you cannot read my mind. So I think it goes with anything, any business. Communication is absolutely key. And I think that can completely make or break a company, a business, a relationship. It all comes down to the basics, communication.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, even before all this happened, we've always talked about that. That's what we've tried to always make sure we do. We try to do that with our children. Mm-hmm. Communication, speaking to them, talking to them, let me hear about your day. Tell me how it's going. It's absolutely important. It's one of the most basic things that we can do for one another.
Well, and it's not always rainbows and butterflies either. No. There's times when we get mad at each other, we hash it out, but we talk about it.
But right, it's out there. It's not something that's just internalized, and that's when things can get a little iffy, I think.
Sure.
It gets shaky. It's hard to, when you can't express yourself honestly, to feel good.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it, I know I feel better when I can get stuff off my chest and honestly tell people, not in a I know I can be hard to live with, and I know I can, I get grumpy, I get mad, I get upset with things, but I know that if I can get that out there and do it in a constructive way, I feel better about it.
We all do.
Yeah.
We all do. I have my moments too, don't get me wrong. I'm sure if you asked our kids, they give you a whole laundry list of things. So, November was just a wild month for both of us. You had some big changes too. You recently made a lateral move within your own company.
Yeah. And again, kind of right back to what we were talking about, just taking baby steps and stuff. And that's, again, I look at what you did, and it honestly, it does. It inspires me to make some changes. It did inspire me to make changes. Like, I had been looking to make a move in, at my job, changing to a different facility, working. I had been at my original position at one clinic, for 18 years. And I decided I wanted to make a change. I needed to do something different. I needed to, challenge myself a little bit. Just try something new. And it was difficult. It was difficult to even do something as, I say simple. It wasn't simple to me, but it's simple in the sense that it's still within the same company. Not many changes that I have to worry about, other than, meeting some new people, learning how they like to do things, how they work together. But again, that's where I think our ability to communicate with one another really helped. It helped me because I saw what you had been going through, what we went through together with that. And it allowed me and helped me to make the decision I felt was best for me. And I think that that was something that I really appreciated more. It was just noticing how you handled things and how you went through things, and it really helped me. So
I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. But it's so often that we forget that we have choices. When we're in a role, especially one like you were for 18 years, I was at my facility for 15 years, you just kind of get in a rut. You just are comfortable with going through the day-to-day motions that you really can't see beyond that. But it's just taking that objective step back and being open to change and being like, okay, let's start to question those fears. So what is worst case? Okay, worst case for you. You switch facilities and you hate it. Okay, guess what? You can seek employment elsewhere. We always have a choice, but I think so many times we're held back because we think we're stuck and don't have any other choices.
Right. No, I mean, we've talked about that a lot. Yeah. And I think you say those words, you can say those words and it can be empty just saying it. But when you really start to, I guess, get uncomfortable in a good way, you start to be comfortable being uncomfortable. You said that a lot of times, and I like that because once you start to understand that it's okay to be uncomfortable, that's when change occurs. And that's usually what drives your ability to make something different, to move, to do something different. And I think that's what's important. So it's kind of the opposite of what I thought. If you fear something, well, you don't necessarily want to go into that fear. Well, no, that's what you do need to do. You do need to understand what you're afraid of and then go after that. Why are you so afraid of this? And then figure out how you can push through that, go through that, do it anyway. And despite the fear, do what you want to do. And right, I mean, I think back, and I know I've heard you on your podcast talk about, when you were younger, what'd you do? You just, as you got older, you went to school, you got a job because that's what you're supposed to do. And again, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with any of that. And if you can find what you want to do that way, awesome. But that's really not how it works for a lot of people. And I think that, for me, I've gotten there older, we're married, we have kids, and, a lot of things change. I mean, the whole experience with COVID, but I think even despite that, I think there were definitely things that would have happened, in our lives like this that would have pushed us this way.
Right, right. And those self-limiting beliefs that we have, I mean, so often the barriers that we think are huge really aren't. They're just in our minds. And when you question that and move past those beliefs, it's really where the change happens.
Sure.
I mean, I'm a creature of comfort, and I consider myself a extroverted introvert. I don't need people to know what I'm doing when I'm doing it. I just hopped on social media when I first started my business, but I would never show my face on there. But this year, I've just become a completely different person by just, all right, I have value to share. So guess what? I need to put myself out there to let other people know you're not alone in this. You're not the only one out there struggling that has bad days, that's trying to raise kids, that's, questioning yourself, but questioning those beliefs and moving past those self-limiting beliefs has been a game changer for me.
No, I think what you just said there is just knowing your value too. That's a big part of it, is knowing what you bring to the table for yourself and for others. And if you really sit back and think about it, we all have value. We all have something to offer to somebody. And if we can figure out what that is that we have to offer to others, I think that's where you see people with passion like you. I know how good you were at what you were doing formerly at your former position, at your former job. And then I see you move into something like this, and I see that just tenfold. I see you talk about it. I see the passion. I see the excitement when you talk about it. And I think those are the things that people really want. They really want that. Even people who are content, I still feel like people have passion for things. And I think that's awesome when people can find that.
Well, and like you said, everybody has value to share. We always think that we need these fancy degrees and certifications, but all of your life experience has led up to this moment. I look back, and after working in healthcare for 16 years, I learned how to manage my time. I learned how to manage conflict. I learned how to talk with people, to communicate, to articulate and educate articulate what I need to convey to my patients, educate my patients, and just overall that skill set that you need as a business owner in being a parent, in being, just having life experiences, that all adds up. We all have value to bring to the table.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. And I think if people can see themselves in that light, like how great is that? How empowering is that for people to, whether you own your own business or not, whatever it is that you do, I mean that's just empowering. You don't have to feel you're not enough, and you can provide something for somebody, and you do have that ability to do that. And yeah, maybe you're just getting started at whatever it is you do. Maybe you're just getting out of school. Maybe you've been working at a job for 40 years and you decided, no, I'm going to do something different. Go for it. Go for it. That's exactly what you've done and you've shown can happen, and you and a lot of other people. And I think, and even in my situation, what we were talking about is same thing. I feel like, hey, look, I have something to offer. Let me try opening up. Let me try going somewhere. Let me try doing something different, and let's see how it goes.
And being open to being a beginner, because you have to start somewhere. Every single person you see that is in the spotlight, that is a CEO, that is running a company, 99.99999% of them were not just handed this. They had to start as a beginner. They had to push through those barriers and work to grow.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot. We talk about like failure, right?
Yeah.
So we talk about, it's like, being in the medical field, you don't get to hear that often. Like it's always about how not to make mistakes. We can't make mistakes. It's important. It's imperative to not make those. And, when you stop and think about it, it's unrealistic. One, it's completely unrealistic. And two, there's so much room to learn and grow from failure. And right. So again, if you're someone out there trying to figure out how you're going to do something and it doesn't work, okay, it didn't work that way. I mean, do something different. And I know that was very hard for me. Again, we had lots of conversation about that. And, having two young daughters, that really, in a way, has helped me a lot, because it gives me a chance to kind of through them teach them that too. That, hey, it's okay not to be perfect. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to grow from things that might be hard, so, and, things aren't always easy. Things are not going to work out. They're going to be messy, but it's okay. Use that as an opportunity to learn from and to grow, and to just know that, okay, hey, we're here and I'm just trying, and we're trying to learn something different, trying to learn something new. So
yeah, I distinctly remember when our oldest daughter was learning to ride her bike, and she was so frustrated by it. And it's like, guess what? You're going to have to keep failing and failing and failing, but you learn from that. You learn how to adjust your center of gravity and stay on that bike, and then it gets easy. Mm-hmm. And the day I realized I need to start talking to myself, like I talk to my daughter, and really harness that message, I feel like that was the pivotal moment where it was like, why aren't I practicing what I preach to her? I mean, like you said, we're taught failure's a bad thing, but is it?
Yeah, no, and no, it's not. And that is the problem. It's not a bad thing. It's I think sometimes it's hard. And again, seeing at our daughters, you can tell they don't necessarily like to fail, but if you can teach them and they can learn how to fail, then that properly, and that way they can learn from it. And, again, I've learned a lot from them too. I'm very appreciative of having them, because they teach me that too. It's like you just said, why don't I talk to myself that way? So when we're going over math problems, or we're reviewing their homework or their tests, and they come back and they're not perfect, and our oldest gets upset about that, but it's nice to talk to her about, it's okay. It's okay. The things that I make mistakes on are the things that I never forget now, because I made those mistakes. I gave myself a chance. Yeah, I screwed up, but when I went back to redo it, I got it right, and those are the things I remember better than anything. So
exactly. Oh my gosh. Same here. I totally remember, having such test anxiety, and I would go back and change the answers, and those were always the ones I got wrong. I just didn't trust myself, but just trusting in the process and learning and growing from those failures being willing to ask for help and just surrounding yourself
Yeah.
with community are just pivotal
Yep.
as any business owner. Well, thank you, John, for taking time out of your day to come on my podcast. You did fabulous. I'm
Anytime.
so
Thank
proud
you.
of you.
Thank you.
I'm so proud to see the steps you're taking because I know it's not easy to change coming from the world's biggest creature of habit. But hey, we're pushing each other. We're doing it scared together. And, you plan, you learn, and you grow. It is a wild ride, but, you're not alone on this journey.
Yep. Well, thanks. I appreciate you having me. This has been really cool.